Welcome back to the next part, and in this part we're going to actually get into, just like I described before, we are going to create another set of parameters that will help us to scale up and down static meshes that are currently spawned into, in this case, PCG pool here within the spline control. So that's why what we're going to do is to set those parameters and also expose them just like we did for these distance parameters for each of the foliage spawning assets. So what we're going to do now to introduce this section, I'm going to go first set this up inside our blueprint. So let's just go back and check those out. So what we're going to do is first let me actually go and select each of them, and I'm gonna put them in the right category. So in this case, what I'm gonna do, if you can look it up on the right hand side, once you have selected one of these parameters, you can actually go and name your category wherever you want to be. I'm gonna call this spawning distance. And as you can see, a variable has pretty much been attached to its parent, which is under this spawning distance category. I can just drag and drop every single other parameter and put it under the same category. So now when you open this, you see on your active blueprint, what's selected on level scene, you can see that parameters has been literally placed on the right category here. And we're gonna do the same thing with the other parameters now. So let's just go create them. Let's call it scale trees. Let's call this grass scale. Do the same thing for other tree scale as well as rock scale. Make sure you also change your slide range, something like 0.5 to up to like say 2. The same thing goes here. Let's compile that. Let's repeat the same process but for the trees. So for the trees, I guess I can go the same. So 0.5 and make trees 2 as well. 2 as well as 0.5 here. And make sure you also put something initially. So let's start with 1 as we currently are. And I'm going to do the same for the rocks. So let's compile these. I'm going to put this on to be visible, in this case public. So now what I can do also put in the right category. So I'm going to call it scale. And I'll put it under scale for each. I'll compile that. And now I can go back to our, in this case, PCG forest. And what you can actually do is either do like what we've just done here, or what we can actually create is called components actor. In other words, get property actors. So in this case, what I'm going to do is right click and search for get actor property. And you just see now has given me a warning because what it does do, and basically once you highlight it, it says the parameter is missing. And the reason why it's missing because at the moment it's set to none as a property name. And the property we're actually looking for is directly connected with the PCG component. That's why it is able to read the information from what we have here on active blueprint attached together. And that defines it by seeing what's in that active blueprint by sending the information something's missing. Hence for this, what we'll do, we're going to use some of these properties names, which are already here. And I'm going to literally use this as a property name. And now you see the property has been found and it knows it's picked up something. So basically what it means here. So we're going to do the same thing by duplicating more. And I'm going to actually set this to trees. Basically repeat the same process. And I'm going to do this for rocks as well. Since it's a rock, I think it's up because it's also, I didn't leave the cup in between. So let me just compile that. So now let's remove this, duplicate it, and let's call it rocks scale. Okay, that's good. So now I can just go back and hook this up into the right category. So in this one, what we're going to do is just transfer points. You can see it's been overlapping here. So I'm going to move those out of the way and I'm going to push these upwards. So that gives you a lot more space here to expand our nodes. And I'm going to use the grass scale and I'm going to set this to its maximum. Because if you attach to both of them under one parameter, because what's going to happen, it will only use one condition, which means it will only use one value for this properties parameter. But because we want to make sure one parameter stays exactly the same, so in this case, what we're going to do is we're only going to use scale maximum and keep scale minimum at 0.6. And that's good because once you decided to go at say 0.5 on the scale maximum, it will basically reverse and it will treat it like it's as opposite direction scale. So that's why it's good to keep it as it is. And let's repeat the same process for the other ones. Just gonna put it right here. And I'm gonna pretty much follow the same example. So I'm going to use the tree scale, expand a bit more, and set this to maximum here. Awesome, let me expand a bit more on that one. And I'm gonna do pretty much for our rocks here. And I open this up. Yep, that's right. Let's compile that. Bring those a bit closer. So now, if I test this out, now you should start seeing my scale will start working. So if I set this to 2, so you see the grass go bigger. And if I put it back to 0.5, you see the grass gets smaller. And that's pretty much principle that works across the rest of the spawning meshes. And in this case, I'll test this on the trees. As you can see, my trees go a lot bigger. And I can set it back to 1. I'll set it to 0.5. The same for the rocks. As well as I can maybe increase the number of rocks by decreasing that space in between. And I maybe go a bit bigger. And so on. So that's a very cool idea. It gives you a little bit more extra variety across this landscape. And you can repeat the same process for rotations if you wanted to. Let's go back and do the same thing for the rotation, just to show you its flexibility. So I'm gonna first increase this so that it gives you a little bit more power. But also what you can also do is to increase your performance. You can just set this to medium. Let's go back and add some of extra values. And in this case, the parameters what we're gonna use is for rotation. And instead of doing that inside this is another option. You can also set up here as a graph settings. And that's what we're gonna go back to this and use this rotation. So in this case, I'm gonna create a new parameter. I'm gonna look for rotator. And I'm gonna rename this to, in this case, trees. Rotation. Keep that as it is. And I'm going to expose this here. On the PCG inside the actor blueprint. I'm going to drag it out from the graphs instance component. It's called set rotator parameter. And because it's rotation, naming of it, it's called trees rotation. So I'm going to actually duplicate its name and put it right there. And what I can also do, because you don't have to use actual value itself, because at the moment it's using all X, Y, and Z values for the rotation. You can either right click and break it down, or you can go and basically search for make rotator, which is the one at the bottom, and use this one as your another additional node to add to its structure. And so this one, what we can do is then create here a variable. Let's call it trees rotation. I put it in the right category as well, so I got to call this rotation. And let's compile that. So we got some values exposed. And for this one, I can go from, let's say, -80 to 180. And the same goes for the value here, so -180 to 180. That gives you a little bit of flexibility there. I'm going to set this to let's say it's 90 degrees. And I'm going to drag and drop into this space, set this rotation to yo, because it's a Z direction. Let me expose this and make it public. So now if we watch this out, so let me go test it. Let's make this trees a little bit bigger. So you can see the results is taking place. And also I can go and rotate them. And now let's go back to our PCG forest. And let's also add this to our trees rotation. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And I'm also going to add that from the graph settings I already have and call it trees rotation. And I'm going to use as a max value. Let me move this slide out of the way here, so at least it's placed in the right place. X, then I go back. So now technically, if I start moving my trees, the trees start to move. Let's connect that. And now, as you can see, your tree started to rotate around its axis, which is very cool, right? Awesome. And you can basically repeat the same process because you're already are connecting to all X, Y, and Z values. So then technically what you can do is you can use this and rename this something like Z axis. And you can duplicate it and call, let's say, at Y-axis, and maybe change this slight range to something like -45. So because it's doing at the pitch value, we don't want to make it too obviously flat when it drops to at least 180 level. So I'm gonna compile that, set it to 0. So if I decide to drag into this and then plug this into this, and compile that, see what happens. So now, if you see now, the trees are started to kind of go in the randomly directions on the Y values. It gives you a little bit of cool flexibility around that. So basically, it's a kind of test for you to try out and see how you play with these values by knowing how you can then use these parameters, not just to connect, but at the same time manipulate that information that you receive from by giving these parameters and just fit those into those nodes that exist here to help you to not only directly connect to the PCG nodes, but also a combination of these two helps you to manipulate, but also control the points by setting its transformation values as well as other aspects that comes with that. So that's why it's very clever how you can do these. And if you feel comfortable enough, you can actually do this and test it out by checking out any of these here, given in this case parameters that comes with each node. So that was it, and I hope you find it very useful. And this information was quite good to be able to not only play with that, but also find ways to not only work with that, but at the same time create your own, in this case, PCG graph to it's functional to create environments. In next lesson, which will be the last lesson on the foliage part, I'm going to introduce the idea of how you can swap different meshes and how do you work with them. So thank you so much for that, and I appreciate your time, and see you guys in the next lesson.